Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heave is good. Memphis on top. 7 tenths remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. On today's episode, we're going to talk about some options for the Grizzlies in the draft, which takes place exactly 1 week from today when we are recording this. I'm joined right now by Brian Schroeder, who is wearing a Jaren Jackson Jr. shirt, for those of you on YouTube, or those of you not on YouTube who can't see it. Brian, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'd like to give our listeners maybe some of your bona fides for specifically Grizzlies draft stuff. You're an independent draft analyst. You got your own Patreon, but I want our listeners to know you were first on John Conchar before the draft.
Yeah, I guess so.
Before the draft, you're like, that guy, somebody's got to get him. And now John Conchar is going to have a long NBA career. I mean, he's signed through the next 4 seasons or something. You also, I remember you identified, we watched Santi Aldama play in his first summer league. And this is a summer league where Santi Aldama, shot like 11%. And I was watching the game with you in person, and I'm like, good Lord, this guy. And you're like, I like him. I think he's good. This is great. So like you were telling me, like, hold the line on Santi. You believed in him. And then also you came on, we talked about some guys, and you identified, like we talked about Jake LaRavia on the show last summer. And also we talked about maybe some deeper cuts, and you identified Vince Williams Jr. as a guy you were very interested in. You think a team should go for, and lo and behold, the Grizzlies agreed with you. They went up and got him in the draft. So you have been accurate as far as my history with you in identifying some of these deeper draft prospects. So I just thought we should let our listeners know a little bit about you there.
I don't feel comfortable taking credit for Jitty because I went to school with him. So like,
well, I mean, you were biased. There was an extreme bias. We can say that extreme bias, but also you were a fan. And I think when you identify a guy who ends up undrafted and then turns into gets a second contract in the NBA, that's a win, right? That would,
I just don't. Win. Yeah. I'm not going to say I identified him because I waited for other draft people to say that they thought he was good before I was like, oh, he is good. Because I didn't want to be like a homer.
You needed a little assurance. Well, the Grizzlies right now, they're in an odd spot as a team. Like, they are a contender, but there's this whole dark cloud of this Ja Morant situation, and they lost embarrassingly in the first round. And so now they've been like relegated to second tier, I think, status league wide when we talk about like who are the good teams or whatever. They're also still incredibly young. They have, I think I just looked at this, they have 7 guys, 23 and younger. And that includes Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. And they also have a bunch of guys who are just totally unproven young guys.
Yeah.
But they're still, Zach Kleiman has apparently admitted, all right, maybe I shouldn't have doubled and tripled down on youth last summer. Our title window is open. We got to do some stuff. So I don't know if they're even going to use their pick. They might make a trade in the next 7 days, but they do have the 25th pick. They also have a couple of second rounders. What are your thoughts on some guys, if the Grizzlies keep their pick at 25, who maybe you think they should target?
It's tough because this is going to be a draft where somebody like there's going to be like, I almost kind of have like my board. I have Jordan Hawkins at 25, and that's kind of like the threshold to me. Like, I know it's the tiers are the same, but like, I really feel like you could be at like 22 and get a guy who would go like 16 in a normal draft. This is a deep draft. It's a little bit flat because I think after like 6 or 7, it's all kind of the same. Like, I would say, not counting Bryce Sensabaugh and Tariq Whitehead, who I have 9 and 10, and that's really only because they both have like legit star scoring ability. They're just both, they have injury concerns, and they're both like, they have other concerns. Not counting those 2 guys because they're like kind of you're kind of gambling for a star. I think from like 11 to like 25, 26, basically the same level player to me. They're all pretty good. They're all guys who should be late lottery picks. And so if they keep their pick at 25, there's almost no way they don't get somebody. And this doesn't include a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, who I'm just not that familiar with and don't like that much, but he's going to go lottery. Yeah. He might go top 10. And then that doesn't even include a guy I guess the first guy I'll talk about is a guy that I don't know if you draft if you're trying to win now, but the comparison I have for this guy is he's this year's Peyton Watson, Jordan Walsh from Arkansas, where his offense is just not good at all. Like he can't. I guess he could shoot spot outs, but he has no offensive skill. But he's 6'7", 215, 7'3" wingspan, super fast, super athletic, and was legitimately an all NCAA level defender at Arkansas. Terrorized people around screens. And you can't have enough 6'7" guys who are legit 2, 3, 4 defenders in the NBA. You need those guys. And so I almost feel like if you do want to really just kind of build for the future with a guy, give him a year or two with the hustle and see what he is. That's the guy. Like you said, I don't know if they're going to do that anymore. But he'd be a guy I look at. I guess if you want a guy who's more ready to play now, I would go with if Leonard Miller is available, although he is a project in his own way too. But Leonard Miller is the most Grizzlies guy in that range to me. It's just weird.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Leonard Miller? Because he's a guy when I'm doing my book. So my thing is I don't follow prospects. I don't watch G League. I don't follow college basketball. And so I'm trying to, I parachute in and I tried to learn just a few things. And he's one of the guys whose blurb, for whatever reason, appealed to me. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a guy. And I'll also say what you were saying, it is a flat but deep draft where a lot of the guys 11 through 25, and other people are saying hey, 15 through 40. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
And so it's hilarious.
There's some guys in the 30s who will be good.
Well, it's hilarious when you're, an NBA podcaster like me and a lot of others where we try to swoop in late and learn about stuff. And it's we have to learn 40 names. We can't. I thought we could have a 15 name list, I will say a consensus 15 through 30. I can learn those guys.
About 10 guys who might have been on that list went back to school. So it's a little easier than it would have been 3 weeks ago. But I had trouble getting out to 80 with this draft, but that's fine. That's usually the case. But I had real trouble after 70 being who's any good, which for me is rare because I'm that guy.
You're normally optimistic. The Leonard Miller, I want to know more about him because his little blurbs sounded appealing to me. First of all, very simply, is he just a 4? Is he going to be a power forward?
I think so. So. Yeah. I was concerned about that, but he was legit a 12, 13, 14 rebound a game guy in the G League, which is whatever you want to say about it. It's a league with a lot of grown men in it.
That's massive. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's a weird guy. His older brother, Emmanuel, is also in the draft. He's probably a G League player because he's a 6'5", kind of goofy scoring wing with TCU. Solid college player, but not a guy who's probably going to get drafted. And Leonard was that apparently in high school until his end of his junior year when he went from 6'4" to 6'10.5". Did one of those things. So it's one of those classic, guy was a guard. Yeah. Guy was a ball handler. Got really tall. He's a weird player because his combination of skills don't really make sense together. He can't shoot, but he has incredible touch. He's one of those guys like LaMelo when LaMelo was really young, where he almost be better shooting floaters from 3 at this point because he's better at that than he is at shooting threes.
Okay,
but he has legit he really has that ability to just hit tough floaters, hit scoop shots, hit layups, hit hooks, all that stuff. That he really had. Santi kind of had that too, and then he kind of learned how to shoot a little bit. That's kind of what I'm getting at with him.
Yeah.
But he just has he can drive. He has that some of that weird, funky Shea stuff. I don't know if it's just a Canadian thing, but he has that ability to pivot and turn really weird. And then like I said, that's what he was for a while. He was a weird lefty 2-3 swingman scorer type. And then he went to the G League and put on 10 to 12 pounds of muscle. And now it's a forward. And his defense can be spotty, but the best thing I'll say about him is he got dunked on 3 times by Wembanyama in those games because he was the only guy on that G League Ignite team who was trying to contest Wembanyama. He was getting into his chest and getting annihilated. But he tried multiple times. He didn't back down from him. And I think there's something to that.
the thing I like, or like one of the templates I use when I'm trying to figure out, again, is it like a draft dummy, like, but who I want for the Grizzlies. I'm trying to find, one, I want guys who I think have like a high motor and are good rebounders. I think that's a weakness of a lot of the Grizzlies players. But also I think as far as like a template, I'm like, can this guy fit alongside Jaren, or how does he fit alongside Jaren? So like, ideally would Leonard Miller and Jaren, could you play that as your 4-5?
I guess the question would be, you maybe get overpowered by some people, but
also, by the way, in this lineup, Luke Kennard's my 3 or something. Yeah.
But I think Leonard is a guy who he has such a strange, like he's one of those guys to me. I always use Carl Landry as this, but he doesn't play like Carl Landry at all. But
yep.
I always favor guys, if I'm not taking stars, I want a guy who's good at like 3 things, but he's like elite level at those 3 things. Carl Landry set screens, shot 15 footers, boxed people out. That's all he did. But he was like, one of the 10 best players on the planet at all 3 of those things. So he played in the NBA for like 13 years. Yeah. And Leonard is like rebounding, hustle, weird touch scoring are the 3 things he's really good at. And I don't know if he's top 10 in the world, but like he has those skills. And I feel like that's an easier path to make a guy like a weird kind of 15-minute a game guy than like, not to on this one player, Colby Jones from Xavier, who's a good player. But you're going to hear about him like, oh, he's pretty good at everything. It's like, all right, does that mean is he NBA level anything? I don't know.
Right.
I've been burned by those guys. Jacob Evans is the guy who burned me, the Warriors pick, because that's what he was. And he stunk. I was like, oh, all right.
I want to go back to a name you said near the beginning. You said Bryce Sensabaugh, and you have him. You said you had him really high. 9. That's a guy who I see in the mock drafts. He's lower, and he's around that Grizzlies pick, around 25. You just said it was the scoring potential, which you think maybe overpowers everything for you.
Yeah, well, he also has some kind of knee issue. I guess the teams are unsure about. I think that's why he's really going to fall. But he is 6'6", 240 with pretty long arms, and he shot. And I'm not making this up. He shot like 53% on 2-point jumpers as a freshman. As a freshman in the most physical league in college basketball, and like. I just put him there because he has like that Paul Pierce ability to just not give a shit about contests. Like he backs people down to the nail, turns around, hits a 16-footer. That's all he does. But he's really good, and he can shoot threes. And that kind of guy, like that would be absolutely a guy you take if he's at 25. I run to the podium to get that guy because like they kind of need, like I know that there's been some chatter they might be in a DeRozan. That's a guy who can do some of DeRozan stuff. Just like if you get him ISO'd on a normal wing, they're not strong enough to stop him. I don't care if it's like maybe 10 wing defenders in the NBA right now who can stop him. He's going to be able to do that. Anything else is the question. He's not a very good finisher. He's not super athletic. I mean, the passing is, I don't think he's like a black hole, but he's kind of big and kind of slow. So he's not like a particularly impactful defender. I guess you could do the PJ Tucker thing and like guard up a little bit because he is 240 with, big broad shoulders. But that's a guy who's at least at the start of his career, is going to be like a TJ Warren almost. Like he's coming in for 20 minutes and he's getting up 16 shots. Like,
gotcha.
You're letting him shoot.
Which honestly, it's something you'd think the Grizzlies need. I mean, they do. I think they do need instant offense. They need half-court shot creation. I know we don't want to get too over concerned with fit in the NBA draft, but I do think it's useful to look at the Grizzlies roster and say, like, what do we need? And of course, there's this glaring hole. It's small forward, and they do have a lot of young options, but I still feel like when I do the draft stuff, I'm basically looking at heights, like who's 6'7", who's 6'8", who can play on the wing. I also think it's worth considering team need when I do think the Grizzlies could use a backup point guard with size. I mean, ideally, like they drafted Kennedy Chandler last summer. They waived him. Technically, they can still bring him back once the new league calendar flips over. I would honestly, I'm interested to see if they like want to waste a 2A or spend a 2A spot on him since they already invested money in him. But like, ideally, I feel like with Tyus Jones going into the final year of his deal, and personally for me, him now moving into just walking trade value or matching trade salary, I'm just like, all right, we don't need him for the playoffs. All right. Thanks for your work. Thanks for the regular season victories.
He's just too small.
He's just too small. Also, I mean,
Tyus is great. I love Tyus, but
Tyus is great, but we have Ja Morant, and that's and it's like if Ja Morant's going to play, and whatever. They're probably going to drop the suspension today or tomorrow. But like, if you have Ja Morant in the playoffs playing 40 minutes, I don't need Tyus Jones.
And more than that, you have Bane, who is like a capable handler. Yeah.
And so like I'm interested in them. Maybe I wouldn't be mad if they took a point guard who has size, who could ideally also play alongside Ja Morant if needed. Are there any guys possibly in the Grizzlies range who fit those parameters?
Well, so Nick Smith is a little bit like Sensabaugh to me, bro. He has injury concerns. He has concerns with athleticism. He has concerns with finishing, but he was a top 5 recruit and is like has a little bit of the Jamal Crawford like ability to score. So if that guy's there, take him.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he will be. But I think the two guys that I can't say either one will be there for sure. Jalen Hood-Schifino from my Indiana Hoosiers, who's like 6'4", 6'5", can run a pick and roll. He's going to be my new benchmark. I've had a thing for a while. This was my defense for LaMelo, even before he was like an elite prospect. If you are 6'5" and can actually run a pick and roll, you just have value. Like Spencer Dinwiddie still has value because he can do that.
Yeah.
And like Hood-Schifino can do that. He's a great pocket passer. He's like a really good passer. Just not super athletic, but like could shoot. Pretty good defender because he's just big. He's just a big, strong guy. And then kind of like that is Brandon Podziemski from Santa Clara, who put in some crazy numbers. Like monster shooter, but he was averaging like 14 rebounds a game for a while in an okay conference at like 6'4". Because he's just like, he kind of reminds me of Kobe White. And then he's just like big, like just a bulky guy. But like a real, like, I mean, sauced up white boy. Like he's going to shoot some bombs. Maybe a little Austin Reeves in him. Maybe, I don't know if he's that big, but like, this can run a pick and roll and can, if you go under, he's shooting and he's hitting. Like he's like a 42% like shooter on like, some guys are 40% shooters and they stand in the corners. Some guys are 40% shooters and they're coming around screens. They're pulling up from 35, that kind of shooter. The question is, can he defend anybody in the NBA? And like, he may, the negative outlook on a guy like that is like a Sam Merrill who can shoot, but just couldn't hang athletically.
We had a Sam Merrill.
Yeah. I know.
I believe we traded Grayson Allen for him.
Yeah. I like Sam Merrill, but I think Podziemski's a little more dynamic, so I think he'll stick. But
and those
are the kind of guys you look at.
I believe ESPN has him mocked to the Grizzlies right now at 25. Let's go over some more names and also talk about the Grizzlies' own young players they have. We'll do that right after this short break. Download the brand new official Grind City Media mobile app. Explore new ways to access your favorite Grind City Media content, from your favorite shows and series to news and entertainment. Stay connected with exclusive content at your fingertips with the new Grind City Media mobile app, available in both the Apple and Google Play stores. All right, we're here with Brian Schroeder, draft expert. The Grizzlies have a bunch of young dudes, and so part of me wonders when I look at all these draft prospects who I barely know, and then I think about the Grizzlies' own players, like how do they stack up? So I'd like to start here, Brian. How would you rank the Grizzlies players that they have right now under contract, who are younger than some of these draft prospects? I'm talking Kenneth Lofton Jr., Jake LaRavia. We'll do your guy Vince Williams Jr. We'll do David Roddy. I'm going to throw in Zaire Williams and also Santi Aldama. So my
guy Zaire Williams.
Your guy Zaire. How do you feel about Zaire?
No, I'm a lot less confident. Last year. Yeah, I'm a lot less confident in him. But I just hope good things for him. That's really it. He's a nice kid, and he has talent. He has talent, but he may just not. His body may not work. So you said Santi, Zaire,
LaRavia, and Roddy. And then Kenneth Lofton Jr.
and Kenny,
and then and Vince Williams Jr.
So how, if I had to rank them by, I think what their NBA utility is, I think I'd still have LaRavia first because I think he does have it.
Okay.
But I'd have to think about that because Santi might be ahead of him now, but Santi also might be kind of maxed out. Like I like him, but this might be what he is, which is, a solid player.
Yeah.
There's definitely those two at the top, and then probably Roddy and Lofton kind of at the same spot, really, because Lofton's effective when he gets in, and you're kind of getting the same player there. And then I love Vince, and I don't think I saw him play at all. And
you probably did not. He didn't play.
Yeah.
He only basically played in the final game of the season, and he played all 48 minutes against the Thunder in that game. But he barely played for the Grizzlies.
So then Vince and the Williams boys at the end there, because I think they both have. Vince is just not a good athlete. That's really what it is.
Right.
I'm a huge fan, and I think there is a way he could be a useful player. But I think it's more that I think they're going to give LaRavia those chances before they give Vince those chances.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where it is, and they invested more in him, so it would make sense.
So, you omitted Roddy accidentally. Where would
no? I said Roddy and Kenneth. So
Roddy and Kenneth the same. So
LaRavia and Santi, Roddy and Kenneth.
Go further into your optimism about Jake LaRavia. He played very limited minutes for the Grizzlies.
I didn't understand.
Of course, they took him much higher, and you could cherry pick the minutes he played. He looked pretty solid. He just didn't. He never got back into the rotation. Over Roddy and Conchar. It's kind of interesting because, like, again, Roddy's who they went with. Roddy's the rookie they rode all season and into the playoffs. I mean, I'm happy to hear your optimism in LaRavia. I think that's my most interesting player to watch for the Grizzlies in Summer League this year. There's an opportunity for him for minutes next season. So or tell me more just about what you see in LaRavia or you saw in the draft process that makes you still so excited.
I mean, he's tall. He's 6'8".
yeah, he's got.
That's
size.
Really, I think he can handle a little. What he could shoot. He just was good. I don't know. He just made a lot of winning plays in college. He just did a lot, and I think, like I said, there is that chance that nothing he does is like an average NBA level. But I don't know. I thought he played hard. I thought he's strong, big dude. I really thought he'd play more, and I'm wondering what they saw. I'm wondering if maybe just he didn't read the deep, like his defensive rotations just weren't up to snuff. Because Roddy's competent at that. But yeah, I just feel like he's a guy who fits really well with a lot of different lineups and could be your fifth guy. That's what I said about him when he was coming out. Like, this is somebody's fifth guy. This is somebody's, I don't know, Josh Okogie kind of. Like, that was kind of what he did for the Suns. Like,
right.
Or Torrey Craig, maybe. Like, this is the guy who just he just gets the loose balls, hits spot ups, just does a lot of little things that you need. If you're going to be a real contender, you got to have those guys on the floor. You got to have the Bruce Browns. You got to have even the KCPs.
Yeah, I mean, this is funny. Like, a lot of the names you just said are players I've mentioned in the last couple of days on the show, where it's just like, that's who I want the Grizzlies to have. And I think that's what a lot of people say when they move on from Dylan Brooks. It's like, we need a fifth guy who doesn't think he's the third guy or the second guy. We just need, I mean, maybe it happens in a trade. I keep saying Dorian Finney-Smith, who's just a guy.
Yes.
He's just a guy, but he's a fifth guy. He's just like, he'll slide in and he'll do some stuff. He'll get some rebounds and he'll take open shots. So there is an opportunity for all these Grizzlies guys to be a fifth guy. And then I guess, of course, look at the draft. And is there a fifth guy in the draft? I'm curious about a name who's a little bit older. Kris Murray. When I see the Kris Murray comp, where I'm like, oh, that seems like ready-made. He's basically as old. He's almost 23, apparently. So he's as old as Jaren and Ja. But
he's the same age as his brother. Yeah.
Same age as his brother Keegan, who you may be familiar with. It seems like he might be available in the 20s. Is that someone you could see the Grizzlies going for?
Yeah, that'd be an easy fit. I think the only reason he's really slipping, I think he basically had the same level of production as his brother. It just was a little more, I guess, boosted. I think the big thing with him is he's not an on-ball player like at all, where Keegan has a little bit. You can give Keegan the ball and he can ISO a little bit. Keegan's a little bit stronger, a little bit larger. So Keegan is like a 4, like ready-made, where Kris is kind of stuck between positions.
Yeah. And
then the other thing with him is like the shot is there, but it really, the last 6 weeks of the season, it just left. He just didn't. So he ended up shooting like 33% from 3. I think he's like a 36, 37% like competent shooter, but he didn't look like it for a long stretch. And I think that's really because he's old, that's kind of the Chandler Hutchison rule, I always call it. When a guy doesn't start shooting until he's 23, you kind of be like, I don't know about that. But I like Kris. Kris is solid. Kris is a really good defender. He's 6'8", 215, good length. He looks like a guy who will be in the NBA for an extended period and can. Again, that's what you need in the playoffs. You need guys who don't kill you. You need a fifth guy who isn't getting picked on. and getting eyes and getting torched out there.
Yeah,
because that's gonna happen enough with Ja out there.
Yeah. So ESPN was saying that that the Grizzlies maybe are being aggressive about trying to move up into the mid first round or late lottery. When you hear something like that, and of course we have to note the Grizzlies have moved up basically every single time. Everyone they've taken, they've traded up in the past 3 years. The Zach Kleiman regime has always traded up on draft night. So when you hear they might be trading up, who do you think it could be targeting?
It's really hard to say because this draft feels like after the top 6 or so, I really don't know.
Yeah.
But I would guess depending if they're trying to get up to like 12 or 13, I would guess they're going after Grady Dick, maybe Anthony Black if he's there, because he's the guy who really fits a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Or Sensabaugh or Tariq Whitehead, because those are like the guys. They're smart. The Grizzlies understand draft value about as well as anybody, and those guys, like I said, have star scoring ability. They have injury concerns.
Yeah,
I think you'd go after those guys because they're both threes who can shoot and could end up being like legitimate scorers, which is what they've needed and what Dylan Brooks was pretending to be for several years.
So who were those two wings you're saying? Tariq Whitehead, and who's the other one?
Sensabaugh was it?
Oh, and Sensabaugh.
The other one.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But then Grady Dick could be the guy they look at. I mean, Kobe Buffkin, maybe he's a little small. And then maybe Koulibaly, maybe they want him because he's free. Anyone else really like Gigi Jackson has talent, but you can get him at 25.
Okay.
Like Jet Howard, maybe I could see that. Jet Howard is 6'8" and can shoot, so
yeah,
he's just really not a good athlete. Even my college standards.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like just league wide, like the Thunder are walking away with like Koulibaly or Kobe Buffkin. One of those guys. I also think maybe just looking at the other mock drafts, kind of consensus draft boards, the guy you mentioned earlier, Hood-Schifino, maybe that could be a guy the Grizzlies target with the trade up. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel if the Grizzlies trade up, because I'm still like burned from last year where I'm like, why do we get rookies? I don't want any more rookies. Oh, you're trading up for a draft prospect. I mean, I need ballers. I need average NBA players. That's all. Like I need Doug McDermott. I just need the world's most average 30-year-old NBA player. That's kind of what I want. But again, that's not as sexy or exciting for NBA draft night.
How about DeMar DeRozan? Does he interest you?
Dude, I know you're a Bulls fan. I don't see the fit. Like I've talked about trading for DeRozan for years.
He's too high usage.
Like I literally, this is a guy I've brought up on the show like last summer, and I believe the summer before, where I was like, hey, if you want to get weird, DeMar DeRozan. Just because I've always coveted just a half-court scorer, a guy who can just get a good look, in a pinch. He can get to that 18-foot turnaround, and like that feels like it has value, but the fit sucks with Ja and Desmond. This is not a video game. Like none of those guys do the things I feel like you need. Like somebody has to get on the ground, somebody has to defend, somebody has to rebound, somebody has to get deflections. If you're 1 through 3, none of them. I mean, all right, Desmond will get some deflections, but like it's not ideal anyway. No. And so like giving up something, like if we're talking about a giveaway, if we're talking about like, oh, you just want Tyus Jones to steady your thing and you don't want to pay DeMar, okay, but like I'm not opening up the treasure chest of draft assets. For
the one real positive with that fit that I will say is if there's any locker room issues that might be lingering, I think DeMar will fix those. But yeah, that's about it.
I mean, I really like DeMar DeRozan, and like the idea of him on the Grizzlies is super appealing. But if we're talking about taking our like one bullet, like our we're trading 2 or 3 first-round picks, DeMar is real low on my list, and I might honestly take the 3 rookies. Let's take 3 bites of the apple and hope one of these guys turns out good.
Yeah, and I actually don't think that's gonna. Like, I don't know if the Bulls are gonna trade him. I just kind of would like them to, if they're not going to do anything, just for his sake, just get him out of there.
Yeah,
he's too nice a guy to just sit on this team and do nothing.
I mean, a sign and trade for Nick Vucevic, I sort of would think about it. Or I assume the price would be very low. And it's like I'd be curious about a pure scorer just next to Jaren. It would be a little weirder. But again, it doesn't fit. It doesn't. I don't know how he slides in.
A rebounder, to be fair.
Yeah.
Which is a very good rebounder. Yeah.
Very solid rebounder.
But go ahead.
No, I say let's hit a few more names for the first round, and then I definitely want you to give me some deep cuts I don't think the Grizzlies. I think whoever they take in the second round, if they use those picks, are definitely two-way guys. But what are some more names we haven't hit that you think if you were calling the shots, you would be targeting in the 20s?
So there's a couple guys. I'll go. I'm a big Olivier Maxence Prosper, Max Prosper from.
Oh, I don't know this guy. Who's this guy?
He's been moving up. He's like 6'8". He's a guy. He's one of those guys who is not like a lead scorer for his team. He's the classic. He was like their third guy or fourth guy some games. But it's like every 5 games he would just go like 10 for 15 for 29 points or 35 points, and then the next game he'd be 2 for 6, 2 for 8. But he's 6'8", 220, 7'2" wingspan, legit like run jump athlete, and can shoot. So like he's going to be drafted in the first round. I feel like because he just has an NBA skills, and I feel like that's kind of a guy he might play more as a rookie than I think his draft slot would tell you, because he has some of that Jeremy Grant, like just like, oh, this guy's like an athlete. This guy can run. Yeah. And like those guys get on the floor quicker than the Podziemskis or even like the Jalen Hood-Schifino types who are just not elite athletes. But I don't know if you're going to burn that on just like a big wing who doesn't really play like big man defense and doesn't really handle. He's just sort of a transition guy shooting threes, but he's really fun. Marcus Sasser, if they really just want to get a guard.
Oh, that's a name I wanted to ask you about specifically. He's again one. When I see the little blurb, I'm like, well, why not that guy? That guy sounds great.
I love Marcus. This is a weird draft because there's like 3 centers who will get drafted in the first round, like 3 true centers, including Wembanyama, who I guess is kind of his own thing. Because like James Najee will be drafted in the first round because he's a brick house, and then Derek Lively from Duke, and then that's it. And then there's like maybe 3 guards, like point guards. It's everyone most of this draft it's a 2-3-4 draft, which is good. It's a good draft. That's what you want. But like if you want to get a point guard and Scoot's going to be off the board, Jaquavion Smith will probably be off the board, and then like Hood-Schifino or Podziemski, who are kind of like big combo guards, then it's like just Marcus Sasser or Mike Miles from DC. And Mike Miles is 6'1", maybe. Or Sasser is like 6'2", 205, big, strong dude, good ball handler. It's just one of those guys who gets downhill on people, like even when he shouldn't. I described his dribbling style as a runaway minecart because he just kind of bounces off of people and careens into everybody and f***s them up. Yeah. And then just hits tough shots. And he could shoot. The only issue with him, I think the only reason I'm not like really sure he's going to be like at least a good 6th man is that the shot will just go away. It's one of those guys where his jumper will just leave for, a week at a time. And he's got a lot of nagging injuries, but that's more, I think, just because he is a physical guard who plays in college basketball where they still let you put 4 guys in the paint and knock people over. So, that those guys tend to rack up injuries.
Gotcha.
But 25 would not be, I have him in the 40s, but 25 would not be. Just like he's can handle NBA guard stuff.
He also
is strong.
Also, I think he caught my eye where he put up some really impressive shooting stats at the combine. Where in the shooting drills, he lit it up there. Are there any other guys in the 20s you want to talk about, or do you want to hit some of your deep cut?
There is one
swings. Oh, who is it?
No, there's the ultimate Grizzlies guy. The guy I hope they pick personally, Andre Jackson Jr.
Oh, okay.
Ajax.
Yeah,
my favorite college basketball.
Ooh, tell me more.
Well, you said you want a guy who knows he's the 5th guy and doesn't take shots. Andre Jackson hates offense. He does not ever want to score the basketball. All he wants to do is
I love it already.
All he wants to do is, this guy has like Gerald Green athleticism, like crazy athleticism, cool hair, gets chased on blocks, is one of the best.
Cool hair. I'm in. You sold me.
Is one of the best transition passers. Like in any recent draft. He's just not a half court guy, but he runs in transition.
Yeah.
Like just awesome. Plays like he's on fire defender. Good rebounder. Dives for, he does Dennis Rodman style, like dive into the 5th row stuff. His numbers are weird because I think he's the only guy, he might be the only guy I've ever done numbers on who at one point averaged more rebounds and assists per 40 than he averaged points. At one point he was like 6.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, 7 assists.
Still my heart. That's
gets blocks, gets steals.
That's my guy.
I love him.
Yeah.
He just can't shoot.
Yeah.
But,
and is he more? He's a wing.
He's kind of a guard. Like he really was kind of he was like their secondary initiator, and he has that ability to hit like skip passes, dump offs. Like I really think if you get him attacking closeouts, he's gonna hit like some actual guard stuff. Like he's going to snake around pick and roll and then like throw a lob. He just he just makes things work. Like UConn, they had some trouble earlier in the year getting guys healthy, and then teams just like would just not be on his side of the floor. Yeah. And I think it took them a little while to figure out that, oh, when Andre catches, if he's on the left wing and they just clear out, he's just going to drive. He's not going to shoot. And then when he started doing that, teams could not collapse. They just collapsed around him. And then he kicked it out too. They had a bunch of shooters, and they were just, I mean, they won the tournament. They not only they win the tournament, they beat everybody by 15 points. Like they just kind of throttled everybody.
Yeah. And
he is their best NBA. He's their second best NBA prospect, but he was their best player too. He just did the most, did everything. I mean, like I said, deflections, rebounds, chase down blocks, assists, offensive rebounds even. Like he 6'6", like 210, but he sometimes looks like a 6'9" guy and sometimes looks like a 6'2" guy. And that is always my kind of player. He's weird. The guy who has the weirdest per 40s is always the guy I love.
I think I'm also similarly drawn to those type of players.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So deep swings. Who were your late draft guys, or who are this could also be guys who you see mocked in the 40s and 50s, and you're way higher on. So like, who do you think?
I think consensus has kind of swung to be more. Maybe I'm just getting old, but I don't have as many of those guys as I used to. Like I don't have a Brandon Clark where like I had him at like 4, right? And the mocks had him at like 28. Yeah. Amari Bailey might be a guy who I don't think he'll be available in the second round, but he's not that much different than Kobe Buffkin as like a off-ball like defender who can slash a little bit. This guy Tristan Vukcevic says he wants to come over. I don't know if he can. I don't know if he's physically ready to. So he might not be a guy who gets taken. Ben Shepherd from Belmont, it's like a shooter. Let's see here. I said Mike Miles.
He's the only draft prospect I've seen play. I went to one Belmont game this year. And I didn't even know he was any good, but he actually had a great game that game. And I was like, this guy's good. And then
he's kind of a late riser. Yeah. He was a guy people didn't take him too seriously until like April. Jalen Clark from UCLA is a guy who probably would have been a first round pick if he didn't hurt his Achilles. I don't think he tore it. I think he just hurt it. I don't think he tore his Achilles.
We already have an Achilles guy. We can't have another one, I don't think.
But he is like the kind of like Andre Jackson a bit, where he's just like a super defender, like run around crazy guy. But I don't know, Achilles stuff with that is tough for me. Alex Fudge is a guy I would still draft.
Alex
Fudge.
That's amazing.
He was Tari Easton's backup at LSU and did a lot of the same stuff. Same size, same athleticism. He might be the only guy in the last like 10 years who actually is a forward center tweener to me. Where like he's 6'9", 200 pounds and real thin. He's not a center, but he doesn't have any sort of forward skill. So kind of like a more extreme version. I don't know if you've even seen this guy play, but Josh Minot, who the Wolves took last year.
Yeah, he was from Memphis, or he played at Memphis.
Yes, played at Memphis.
So I knew his name, and then I watched him summer league last year on the Timberwolves squad.
But that guy's entire problem is that like he's a center's game, but he's like 210, and Fudge is like Fudge is like even more of that. Yeah, but he is an awesome athlete and like has good defensive instincts. So I'd still in the 40s. I'll take a shot on that guy.
Yeah.
Jaime Hawkins might be a guy you bring in. I don't believe in him as like a.
I see him in the first round a lot of players, but you're saying you don't see him. You're not.
He's a good basketball player. He just is not athletic. Like
gotcha. Yeah.
He's a 4. He almost kind of reminds me. This is a deep cut, but like a Arslan Kazemi kind of guy. Like one of those guys who. One of those guys who would have been drafted in like 2008 because he played on a good team and was like got rebounds and offensive rebounds and like, but he's like a 6'6" power forward. He can't. Like I don't know if that works. Like George Niang can get away with that because George Niang is like an elite shooter,
right?
But other like you have to be that, and I don't think Hawkins is that. But like guy's tough, plays hard, like he's a nice kid. So I hope it works out for him. I just don't know if I believe in it. I would draft Pete Nance. I love Pete Nance. He had a bad year at UNC. He's Larry Nance Jr.'s older brother or younger brother. He's taller. He's a better shooter and more athletic. And I know you're supposed to say this. Larry's been saying for 3 years he's better than me. You're supposed to say that to your younger brother, but he is like at Northwestern. He went from like he was like a freshman who just didn't do it. He just dunked the dunks. It was like, oh, that's Larry Nance's son. That's cool. And then his last year, he was like their assist leader, the 3-point makes leader, leading scorer, leading rebounder. I think he was like second in steals and second in blocks. Like he just did everything. And like he plays like Larry Nance Jr., but he's 6'11".
I don't. So I have a thing. I'd be terrible at drafts because like I'm obsessed with just NBA player name. Where I'm like, and maybe it's like the Seth Curry corollary. We're like, well, how did Seth Curry? No one told. Like he's a Curry, and so like I mean, I still feel like Kris Murray, his brother's in the NBA, good enough. Like it seems like there's so many guys who end up being good who were taken lower. We're like, well, he was so and so's son. Why didn't you think he'd be good? Like Jalen Brunson. Like Jalen Brunson's amazing. We have his dad was an NBA player. Why didn't anybody believe in him? And so maybe I don't know if has anyone studied this. I'm sure you would think it would be backwards where guys would get overdrafted based on their name. But I think that
used to happen. I think that used to happen more. You get like the Danny Shays types or like the 2 years where people had to pretend that Michael Jordan's oldest son was a prospect. No.
Oh, gotcha.
He's like my height. Get out of here.
Bronny James will be the true test.
But Bronny is a weird case because he is good. Yeah. And I think in this draft, he'd be taken at like 13 or 14, which he's old enough to be in this draft. Like he's a solid player. Like he's not that much. He's like, he should be like a Caruso type. I think that's kind of what he is. Yeah. But he's going to get drafted top 5 because not only is he Bron's son, there's also a solid chance if you draft him, you're getting Bron. So like,
the Grizzlies are going to take him with the Warriors pick next year. It's going to be awesome. Anyways, Brian, man, thanks so much for all of your information and getting me up to speed on a lot of these prospects. If you guys want more of Brian's work, go to patreon.com/BrianJNBA. Thanks, Brian. I look forward to talking with you again soon sometime.